Hey everybody, what's up? All right, it's Double Deuce back. Today, we're going to start the build on the V8. We got the instructions up over here. We're going to start with the crankshaft. And we're going to go step by step. And it looks pretty easy to build. So, I like building the engines myself. That way I'm familiar with how they operate. Yeah, it'd be nice to have one already put together, you know, save time and everything, but I like to check the fit, finish, you know, and basically I know by the directions if something would happen with the engine down the road, I would know how to tear it apart. That's why I like the L400 kit so much, because you could just, you know, whip them apart and put them back together again. So we're going to go over the table of contents first. I can't really zoom in on this side, so what I'll do is I'll flip the camera around and I'll zoom in on the instructions. We'll go over them real quick and then we'll start with the crankshaft. So okay, here we are. Now let's go over this instruction manual really fast, and it's basically the same as all the rest of them. They do show you detailed instructions on what to do, what not to do. This is your introduction, you know, for thank you for choosing the engine. They get the catalog here. Your safety warnings and instructions. Then you got your breakdown. They familiarize you with the engine. Let's see. Same on this side. Then they give you your distribution diagram of parts for the packing and all that, you know, so you know what to do. Like say your head gaskets and stuff are in a bag over here, and they got your little bag of tools here if you need them. So here's the layout. In your blister or your foam packs there, they're all numbered, and go down through. They show you basically what's in each foam container, foam separator. Your hardware's got all your numbers, and then they show you to start building a crankshaft. So it's pretty simple. What I did, I just kind of laid everything out here, and so they say 29, 28, 39, and 48. So if you look in your little blister packs here, you're going to see number 48, the clip, is in here. So I dug that out, and it is right here. And then 29's a rear seal, and if you look in there, it even has a little spring in there to help keep it tight, which is kind of cool because that's a high quality seal there. And then here's your rear bearing. This is number 28. So they basically say just to slide everything on and put the clip on. So I'll get my Traxxas shock oil out here, and I'll put a little lube on the crankshaft itself because it helps quite a bit. Don't need a whole lot, just a little bit. Make sure you put it inside your seal too, inside the lip of the seal. That right there, it doesn't start dry, and the seal does its job right from the get-go. I'll show you. Put this on like this. Bang. Move around a little bit there. Get that oil around. Put your seal on. Remember, the spring goes inward. And like so. So the flat area with the little markings in it face outward. And then you put your little clip on here, which I don't have my little tension pliers for this, so I'm going to have to figure this out somehow because I left them at work. So at least I believe I did. So we'll be back with the next setup after I get the clip on there, and we'll go to where you set the crank in there with your center supports, and it's very straightforward. And then you put your main caps over top of that, and then you get your rings out of the block, Like I said before in the other video, the rings are for each cylinder. They've been paired one by one for each cylinder, and it looks like we'll be putting the pistons in, so the short block will go together really fast. So stay tuned and we'll go to the next step after I get the crank done. So I did have my snap ring pliers here. These make life so much easier, because what you do is you put there's two little pins there, and there's two little holes there, and you just put them in there like so, and then squeeze it and it'll open them up just a hair, and you can slide that clip right on the crankshaft. Make sure it's set in the groove, and it is, and voila, it's there. You see it? So now we'll go on to the next step, which is our other bearing. So in case anybody was wondering, I got my dial calipers out here, zeroed them out, and I measured the hole on the inside here, because there's no numbers on these at all. Like the Piston had a serial number written across the brake in it, but I checked these both ways and they fit. The circle's the same both ways, so it doesn't matter which way you put them on, so you won't have to mark them or nothing. So I just wanted to check that out to make sure that they were all the same, and they were. So I will use this one as a complete circle, this one as a complete circle, and this one as a complete circle. So in other words, I'll use the bottom halves, you know, in the block like they say, and then I'll use the top halves in the main caps like they say. Okay, I ran into my first snag here. Inside the block here, I got my center bearings in here. Inside the block here, there was a little burr on each side, so the crankshaft was too tight to fit in there. So what I did was I just took a screwdriver and just kind of, or a knife or something, just kind of give it a little shave there to get that burr off there. Or it's the coating on there, one of the two. But after you do that, it sits in there pretty nice. And so you get that kind of, just put a little angle on it, that's all, just enough to help it set in there. And what I did here, I took my dial calipers, one of the straight edges, and I laid it across each bearing to make sure that the bearings were seated properly, because there is a groove on the bearing that sets in the block. So if you have any debris or anything inside that little groove, your bearing's not going to set proper, because this is pretty precise the way it sets in there. So now, let's see, the front of the block is here, and your pulley goes up front. Now we'll see how it fits now, because it does set in there pretty tight. Okay, now that's good. It's a little stiff, but I haven't put any lubricant in there yet, and we still have two brand new seals here that need to be broken in. So there's no nothing binding or nothing, so it's all good. Now I'll put the rest of these in and we'll go from there. Going to make it nice to rebuild if you can change the sleeves in it and the pistons. And so if you want to do an overhaul on the thing, you just basically have to buy new sleeves and new sleeves, piston rods, and crankshaft. You can actually go through it, or you just get what you need. If you score a sleeve you can actually, you know, not worry about it. First I thought, wow, the thing's going to leak water in here, you know. Then I realized, no, it's not, because the water jacket's out here. And it's nice that they got a nice lip on there to hold it tight. And the pressure, sticky ring there, doesn't want to play well. There we go. And there we go. So they're in there. Okay, number 6. Push the ring out. Put the cylinder back in. And number 8. Pull the cylinder out. Cylinder back in, put the ring in. And it turns freely, everything's good. Now we'll start putting them together and go from there. So I'll be back with more. Okay, guys. Got all the pistons in. Nice little unit, super tight, nice and tight. Gonna need a little break in on this one, but I mean, when you go to move it, the jugs want to move out. Now they give you your ring compressor here. Put your, with this little recessed up here, that's where you put the piston down through this way, and it's floured out, and then you can walk the piston in. Bring the piston down just a little bit, put it in your cylinder, take something soft. I used a plastic end of a marker and just pushed it through. And but don't forget to lube up your rings first with a little bit of oil or something to help them slide in there really easy. And don't forget to lube up your journals with oil. And when you're putting it together, make sure you don't lose your rod bearings on the bottoms here that, you know, hold, because there are 2 little halves of a bronze bearing that go the bottom and the top of the rod here. So I'm a happy boy. I love this thing. This thing is really nice, and it's still not that heavy. You know, I mean, it's got a lot of weight in there. That's usually the girth of it right there, you know. But so we'll be back for some more, guys. Stay tuned. Okay, guys. So I kind of built a little bit ahead here, but they show you how to put your pistons in, and they show you how you line up the 2 notches in the piston and mount them over, and make sure, like I say, make sure your rod bearings are still involved. And they show you how to put the oil pan on, which is pretty straightforward. In my little bag of head gaskets and all that, let me pan out here. In my little bag of head gaskets and everything, there was 2 silicone gaskets on this sheet here. It was pretty cool because when you lift it, the holes stay on the sheet for you, and now you have to kind of play with them to line up the holes in your block here. You know, like the one side I had to put the shiny side up, and the other side I had to put the dull side up. So, but whatever it takes just to get it sealed up. They come clear into your bearing seal over here, and they are silicone. So now the next part of the build is putting together the water pumps. So I got my housing, number 31, and now the little gaskets that go behind, you know, behind the little furrows there, they're kind of all over the place in the pack here. They're supposed to be number 80, but I found them scattered. And your little nipples are 79, and then they show you how to put the bushing in. Looks like there's a pin there, 74, and your backing, your water pump gears, and your other gasket. So I'm going to search for that and get that stuff out, and then we'll start building that. But so far the short block's all done. except for the outer supports there that they haven't told me to put in yet. So here we go, guys. Okay, so we got the water pump put together and mounted on there, and then they tell you to put the little nipples in that you have there with your gaskets. And I had to kind of run mine in with a drill because it was really stiff. But because I made a mistake on the 400 L400 last time, I put the gear on backwards. This time I put the gear on correctly. They tell you how to do it, blow up the directions. The little notch with the recess in it goes forward. So now the next step they're showing is to install the cylinder heads. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to get all the hardware out, install the cylinder heads on it, and we'll go from there, guys. Okay, everybody, we got the cylinder heads on like they said, but I want to make a note. I believe it is number 77. These are shorter on both sides. Now if you look at the front of the engine, the shorter ones, you'll see inside here, the shorter ones go in these 3 top holes at the back. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That way there it doesn't stick out through the starter area. And then of course you got your 10 smaller ones on the bottom here. These are number 67s, and then your 76s. There's quite a few of them. There's like 23 of them or something. And just make sure your gaskets are nice and flat when you put them down. What I did is I put a bolt in the front, started the gasket hole through it, and then lined them up before, so I have left and right. Now this is important too. For some reason, number 63 goes up in this upper left-hand head corner here. I don't know why. To the front of the engine with the water pump. So now they got me putting on my collars for my springs here for my camshaft, but I want to go and tighten everything up first, and then I'll get them out. Those are in your blister pack right here. All your caps for that. What I do is I put some grease inside of them and squish them on. That way they're greased inside. And then when I put my cam in there, and then I'll grease the rockers, you know, for the camshaft too. So anyhow, that's what I'm going to do next, guys, and then I'll be back with some more of the build. This thing's going pretty quick, and I'm really liking this thing. It's everything like fit together real nice. The head gaskets, the shims are made out of aluminum. Some of them had a couple little bends in them, but if you take something soft like a back of a marker and just kind of don't push hard, just kind of rub it a little bit, and it'll rub it right out. So I'm digging this thing. I love it. I love this thing. So more to come, guys. More to come. So now we got our heads on. I jumped ahead a little bit to try to figure this out, but I want to go over the instructions with everybody. It's looking good. It's looking good. I'm excited. The thing I did not see in the kit was any hoses for the water jackets. I didn't see none of that. You got to get all those in there before you put on your intake, and you got to wire in your starter before you put on your intake, because it's underneath it. So kind of reminds me of the North Star Cadillac when they had the starter underneath the intake manifold. So let's go over this stuff here. And okay, so we got the head bolts in. I told you about that. Then they have you do your camshafts. Now I had a problem with my camshaft. The pin that goes behind these pulleys here, these two pulleys, the pin that went behind it, I had to grind them down because they were just too fat to go in the back of the pulleys. And so that was, I had to grind like flat spots on the sides of the pins after I put them in the camshaft. You know, these two pins here, number 50. And they were tight going in the cam, but there was no way them things were going on these pulleys without breaking something. So I took it out, used my Dremel tool, and just ground a flat spot on each side so they would slide on real nice. And then I put my seals in and my E-clips and all that, and then continued on with the build. But in the back was pretty straightforward. Everything went together there, the seals, the bearings, and the E-clips again. I didn't even lose an E-clip this time. Then I did the rocker arms. These are very similar, almost exact copies of the L400. You know, same exact setup. So I got all them together, and I had just enough E-clips for that. I didn't even lose one of those either. And then have you put your starter in with your bracket and all that stuff first. And so I just kind of set that in there because I have to take it back out again. And because I need to wire this thing up somehow and try to figure out where I'm going to hide the wires at. And then you have your back plate, which is here. And then they have you go to your front plate, which is here. But it basically covers up the rubber front seal and holds it tight. And then your intake manifold, I had to put on my little supports here to bolt the carburetors to. And there's a plug front and rear on that. So, you know, that's where I got there. And this is where I'm going to stop tonight because I'm pooped. I've been at this all day long, and right now it is 7:30. So I've been on the build all day, and ever since I got the box and opened it. But I'm loving it. I mean, there's a couple of little things here and there I had to work with, which I didn't mind. You know, and it's coming together really good, and I can't wait to hear it run. I did notice the ports are really small in this thing. Very small, you know. I mean, actually the port in the head looks bigger, you know. But like I say, it's a learning process. It runs, you know, apparently, because that's, you know, they've been testing them and everything else, so it must be okay that way. I imagine down the road I'll probably have to tinker with something like maybe bringing a little bit more air into this engine to give it a little bit more power, you know, because like I say, an engine's just a big air pump, and you know, the more air you can push through it, the more power you can make out of it. So anyways, guys, I'll be back continuing with the intake manifold and stuff, and a lot of bolts on that intake, you know. They made sure it was good and level. Then you mount your carbs with your 2 bolts on each bracket there. And then you get to your starter flywheel. And one thing I wanted to mention about the flywheel I thought was really cool was it's recessed inside there, so you can bring your clutch shoes in, your clutch in tighter inside that. So I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know how a regular 8-scale clutch is going to hold up to this thing, but we're going to find out, because that's what I'm going to put on it. And then your carb linkage and your front idler pulleys and your front water pump bracket, or your belt tensioner, I'm sorry, and then your idler smooth pulleys for your belt, And then they tell you your timing marks. All the timing marks go down when you put it together. And then you have you put your headers on, which is coming close to the end of the build. Valve covers. I didn't really see any valve cover gaskets either. I know like the Toyan has a valve cover gasket on it. Maybe they omitted that, maybe they didn't think they needed it. I don't know. That cool looking air cleaner, like the old Cobra 427 Cobras, you know. And looks like she's just about done. Yep, and then they give you, you know, about making a base and all this stuff and your glow plugs and everything else needed for the thing. Your fuel rating, 25% nitro, and the plug life and all that. So, you know, it's going to be I think it's going to be pretty cool to like fire this thing up. Now, one thing I did notice too was, I'm going to try to zoom in on this, was how deep, look how deep those holes are for the glow plugs to go in at. They're wicked deep. So you could probably use you know, when you do use the spark plugs and everything. I just thought they looked a lot longer than normal to me, you know. So hopefully that won't be a problem, but we won't know till we fire it up. So, and maybe that will be a good thing in a way. Maybe that'll shield the ignition on the glow plug itself, and it'll shield it up in there. So when the piston comes up, it ain't going to extinguish the, you know, the glow plug after you took the battery off. So, anyways, guys, I'm going to continue on, and I'm going to take a break right now and grab something to eat, and probably answer some questions for you YouTubers out there, and we'll go from there, man. Stay tuned for more. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. The build is done. I haven't started it yet because I'm still working on some cooling, some hoses, and an overflow tank. So my final thoughts on this, had a couple of little quirks as far as assembly stuff, which I went over in the video. A couple of mistakes I made myself, like this little bearing in the front here doesn't go behind it. I couldn't figure out if it was the bearing or the seal, and I made the same mistake on the L400. They're similar, very similar. But I made a nice little aluminum mounting bracket to set it up on because I never do that. And I learned from the Aussie V8, it's just too much to handle. You can start the other engines in your hand, but this one here is a monster, so so was that one. But now, I kind of rigged up my own ignition system on this thing. You can see I kind of made one for myself. On this side I took out of my L400 Jeep, and this one here I took off my version of the V8 I made a long time ago. I'll probably end up getting a couple of these, or I do have plenty of these little step downs. They're very small and micro, and I made one for my Aussie V8, and I was going to rob it off that, but it's like I don't want to start tearing projects apart to start another project, you know. So I'll sit down and solder up a really nice system for this, because I kind of want to do a lot of wire management on here, so it's nice and neat. And the way the plugs come in with the 90-degree boots that they have there, I took these boots off here. You can see that these are pretty beat, but they come straight in, straight down, and they set real close to the headers. So I'm thinking straight in. I do have some, I bought Traxxas ones that are straight plugs, and then I'll just bring them back here, and I'll use one of the bolts back here on the valve cover and put a little wiring loop in there so I can, you know, kind of join that and my starter together. So, but my opinion so far is I really like this thing, and it was well worth the wait. Now we'll get it running, and you know, we'll see where it goes from there. I mean, the cool thing about what we have now, we have it, okay? Some of the stuff was rushed out into production. They had some problems with other engines. But you have to admit, the majority of most of the engines, the only problem I ever had with one of these engines was a little valve seat not seating, you know, in the L400 and the L200, and you know, just the crankshaft problem on the L400, which from what I understand they took care of that. So, you know, it was just a simple bigger bearing in the front, and I would probably put a bigger bearing in the back too on that thing, because I still have one that I ran a little bit but haven't ran a lot. But as far as the Toyan V8 goes, this stuff was just a thought, you know, a couple of years ago. I mean, you know, they talked about building one for a long time, but now we have them. So it's a blessing that they jumped ahead with what went on in the world the past couple of years. I'm really amazed that they actually got one produced and put into the market. This will be the first affordable V8 that's out there. It's the cheapest, and in my opinion, I really like the valve setup on this thing, because yeah, I'm an old push rod guy. We had the cam down here and the push rods and everything else, but there's so much wear on those things, and there's constantly need adjustment. But honestly, V8 has them with the roller rockers and everything, and they're constantly coming undone. There's just so much friction dancing around there. Just constant maintenance. What I learned from the L400, very reliable cylinder head. You know, it was just, could have simplified the carburation on it, but I probably ran that engine more than I have any of my other engines. And if this head design is going to be just as reliable as that, because it looks like it's almost exactly the same parts, I think this engine is going to be a good contender, and it's going to be good and reliable. So, say I've not fired it up yet. I seen Warp Perception. He said, you know, they got to warm up a little bit before you go. You know, that's cool. You know, there was a couple of things in the directions that I didn't quite understand, so I had to keep going back and looking at everybody else's videos. For instance, if you look here, the hoses, these come out of the back of the water pump, and they don't tell you which hose goes where or nothing. So you have to kind of look back. So what I did was I crossed them over. Let's see, where this hose comes into this side, and this hose comes out of this side. So the water flow will come in here, go through the engine, and then out here on this nipple. But the problem I see for that is all the heat you've generated in this cylinder head on this side is going to go through to the cylinder head on this side. So maybe we can, I'm thinking about putting a couple of T's here or something underneath the intake manifold, or one T, so it comes in and out separately on each side. We'll see. I don't know yet. Right now I just want to get it running, and I want to thank everybody for, you know, your support, following me, and, you know, watching my builds. And this one's almost ready to start, so the next video of this engine will be probably me firing it up, and we'll go from there. But now I want to do a size comparison real quick. Here's the Toyan V8, nice and compact. Here's my version of the Toyan V8. It's huge. So let's take the L400 for example. Let's look at it. You can see how tall this thing is and how massive it is. And then when you look at the V8, you can actually see that it's pretty compact. It's like a lot smaller down here. And when you look at it, it's short and wide, and which is good for setting it in a chassis. Now they kept the bottom real small here, but if you want to look at the two together, I'm happy with this. I'm very happy with the size of this. This is just a monster. Here, it's just too big. But anyways, guys, you know, the Aussie V8 is just probably in between these two sizes, because this is like a lot of carburation, a lot of cylinder head stuff going on there. But anyways, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Any questions, comments, hit me up. I took a break last night for a while and tried to had to walk away from it for a while, and sometimes something like this is in front of me, I can't sleep until it's done. You know, my time is so limited, and I knew if I didn't try to finish it last night, pull an all-nighter on the thing and, you know, get it done, then it wouldn't be till next weekend. Who knows? You know, who knows what my life brings, because it's almost like a hurricane, you know, twister. It's just all over the place. So I am happy I got it this far, and I'm glad you guys tuned in to watch it happen. So now the next videos we'll do some running things on it, and for now, like I say, the glow plug's going to work. They do have notches on the back of the camshaft for distributors, I see, which is kind of cool. So I think that's going to happen down the road. And we might see a gasoline version of this here pretty soon if they get the ignition system figured out on it. But okay, guys, love to all. Take care, and we'll catch you up with a running video of this as soon as I get the radiator and the cooling done. So have a good one, man. Adios.